she knows that like nobody returns from the underworld, but yet she's Inanna, right? So she is called, so she goes.
Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. Today, our guest is Mari Castle, Ph.D. Let me tell you all about Mari. Mari is a holistic health practitioner, breathwork facilitator, and transformation coach. She is co-director of grofstudies.com and author of 2 insightful books on healing through energy, spirituality, mythology, and archetype, one of which is this book right here that we have right here called Unveiling the Modern Goddess Through Symbolism, Chakras, and Myth. With a background in transpersonal psychology, Mari blends ancient wisdom with modern approaches to healing. Passionate about guiding others to spiritual fulfillment, emotional awareness, and optimal health, Mari combines cultural healing practices with modern consciousness research. This is very, very cool. Mari also explores the divine feminine and masculine through ancient Sumerian wisdom. Very cool. Mari, thank you so much for being with us today. We're very excited to talk to you about this work that you're doing and to get into all of that. So thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm going to start with a big question, which I do sometimes. Your work, and also what I noticed in your book, is that you combine holotropic breath work, Kundalini yoga, and study of the chakra systems. How has that work contributed to, as you say in the beginning of your book, a change in your life?
Well, that is
I told you it was a big question.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I would say that because of the holotropic breath work, because I just kind of, I always say nowadays, like hearing a call, like when you hear that inner voice, it's good to listen, even though you might not know what the heck this is about. And I got that call for the holotropic breath work. And then just after, I did like 2 really big sessions at the first time that I ever did it with 100 and some people in the room. It was really crazy. And
wow.
then, uh, and then that just like opened up so much for me in my world of interest in more of the spiritual psychology, which is one way we could translate transpersonal psychology. It has to do with spirituality, but also cross-cultural perspectives. And then I came across, because I did a lot of yoga and the breath work, that stemmed my book to want to learn more about the chakras, right? Mm-hmm. And then there was a Kundalini yoga teacher training in my local area that I just felt really called to as well. And it overlapped Chinese medicine, which as part of my holistic health practitioners, acupuncture, doctor of Chinese medicine. So the Kundalini yoga teacher training really kind of was a nice umbrella for everything that I was, kind of learning about and studying, and then to have a daily practice, as opposed to what holotropic breathwork is more going to a one day or a weekend or a retreat event. You don't do that on your own, and it's not something you do every day. I just really realized how much the holotropic breathwork changed my perspective a lot about many different things, and particularly just having had a struggle with suicidal thoughts when I was very early on, younger teenage years, and even then still a little bit in my early adulthood. And then when I discovered the holotropic breath work, and Dr. Stan Grof said, something about, his concept of this too shall pass, that, and also that people are feeling those thoughts oftentimes. And I'm really wanting to bring this up because I feel like a lot of people can relate or resonate, or some people, or a lot of people you don't realize have felt this way at some time in their life. So it's just like something, that we feel because we want to connect with our higher realms of consciousness. It's not necessarily that we don't want to be here, but we want that bigger access to other realms of consciousness. And the holotropic breathwork offered me that space to do that. When he was just talking about this too shall pass, that was just a mantra that happened to me when I would have those thoughts as I was continuing to do this work. And then finally, that feeling left me. So I was really grateful and definitely life changing.
Great, great. What is the modern goddess and why do we need her today?
What is the modern goddess? Who is the modern goddess? It's all of us, honestly. Because even men can have the divine feminine energy within, right? It's just recognizing it, having awareness. And well, wow, another big question. Why do we need her today? How much time do we have?
We got an hour. If you want to spend it on this one question, give it to us.
We so badly, it's not even, do we need her? She's here.
Oh, awesome.
It's a matter of accessing, tapping into her energy, checking in on what does the modern goddess mean to you personally, individually. So that could look differently for everybody. And all in all, it's really about recognizing the aspect of the divine feminine energy and the divine masculine as well. But we are talking about the goddess. So just pointing that out, there is an important, I didn't mean to say important, but like a yearning for balance in everybody's consciousness, whether we realize it or not.
I think that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that when you look back to ancient cultures, and so particularly my study has been of the Sumerians, that they had balance in their everyday. They were intentionally balanced, not only through the masculine and feminine aspects of their outlook, their perspective, integrating both, but also with nature. And nature represents balance, even spiritually, in all different facets. They incorporated balance, even in their exchange and transactions with each other, as they kind of grew in the mercantile kind of perspective and trading with each other and things like that.
Okay, so in your work, specifically around the goddess, what is it that we can glean from the goddess that we can take into our own lives that can be helpful to us in the modern world? Like what can we use from the goddess and goddess energy to affect our own lives?
Yeah, great question. So the book that I wrote, right, Unveiling the Modern Goddess Through Symbolism, Chakras, and Myth, is that's so fun. Look at all the tabs. I love it. Is really about understanding more about ourselves. So that's the feminine energetic aspect. It's like the internal aspect, right? And then there's masculine, which is like our physical. We could just say that simply. With the story of this ancient goddess, Inanna, from the Sumerian culture, who was titled Queen of Heaven and Earth. So we have heaven and we have earth. Those are opposites, right? And then Goddess in Love of War. She was also titled that. So those are two paradoxical opposites. What I discovered through my studies at that time, particularly, I was reading Dr. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, that he wrote a book and gave a lecture on the chakras,
Oh,
which
interesting.
was, yeah, his book is titled Psychology of Kundalini Yoga. And it's not an easy read. It's a really tough read, actually. But me,
Often much about Jung is not
I
an
know,
easy read.
yeah, you got to really be like, okay, I'm honing in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good and so rich. And he describes the chakras. And as he was describing the chakras, was the same time I was reading Inanna's myth from
Mm,
the translation that was given by Betty Meador, who's a Jungian analyst, and then also Samuel Noah Kramer, who is a Sumerian scholar. He translated the cuneiform tablets, these stick writing, kind of like Egyptian glyphs and all of that, So he
Mhm.
translated all that, and that me having those two in my mind is like overlapped because I was like, oh my gosh, this goes together. Like I'm seeing these similarities in the chakras with the beginning of her story with the tree.
Mhm.
She talks about saving the tree. So
Mhm.
that's our root chakra. And that's important for stability, for safety. I'll just say those two things, right? That's enough,
Mhm. Mhm.
stability and safety. She, in the myth, brings the tree to her holy garden, cares for the tree, nurtures the tree that was about to get swept away. It was about to like be wiped out from the flood. And so we can think of that alone, just her connection with the tree, as our own connection, rooted, grounded, stable, safe, nurturing, right? Nurturing is super important in the root chakra as well.
Mhm.
So that's just one example. I could go through all the chakras, but
Can
that,
we, can we, can you tell us just a little bit all the way up of Inanna and how that, is that okay with you, Raquel?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then I was gonna bring up something else, which I think is gonna tie into your
okay.
question, Jennifer, is that because in the, of course there's the seven chakras, but then there's also in the myth of Inanna, the story of Inanna, there's the seven portals that she goes through in the underworld.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about the connection between the seven portals possibly and then the seven chakras. So maybe tie all that in with Jennifer's question. And then there you go. Just another little light question
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Little throw off question for you.
Hmm.
I love it. It's good. It's good stuff for me because I love deep questions and questions that everybody can relate to, hopefully. As I describe it, I like to simplify things and help people understand instead of a lot of, words that people don't resonate with. Um, so yeah, so with the sacral chakra, that is pertaining to her specifically with her connection with her father. And that's the masculine and feminine because the sacral chakra is about being in the flow with water as the element, but also about intimacy. And in a way that is, if you're a young teenager in your life, then you're interacting, you're getting out of the house, right? You're with your friends.
Mhm.
So that's that interrelational aspect. So that's really prominent in the sacral chakra, and then incorporating the masculine and feminine energies together. So the male and female has to do with more the sexual aspect of the sacral chakra. But here, particularly, it could just be any relationship.
Mm.
So with her father, she is invited to go to visit him in his city, which she has to leave then her city and go to see him. And then she's invited in to, we'll just say, the palace, and she is given uh, she's given the bronze vessel with beer and they're drinking and celebrating and having a wonderful time. I kind of see it as her the maiden, so it's like maybe around her 16th birthday, we'll just say. Um, Not that we know even Inanna actually was in human form, but it's just a great model of a story to think about. And then the the bronze vessels, like they're literally cheering, in the story, is the flowing water. For us personally, it's about being in the flow, right? It's
Mm.
about checking in in the energetic area, the sacral chakra, of something maybe earlier on we didn't have a good experience with. Or did we have a good experience with the connections in our relationships? But usually, oftentimes, people that age have something that they're sort of thrown off, right? There's a block somehow that happens later on. And that's why it's really important to consider that, because of the water element in the sacral chakra. So I'm going to not try to take up all the time in answering this question. But then we move into the solar plexus, and what happens here is really interesting because she leaves the palace. Her father grants her the powers of civilization, which I'm teaching this class right now, and it's really interesting to look at the symbolism. But like there's like a little purse, or like a container that he gives her the powers of civilization, which has to do with all of the gifts of the creative aspects of humanity. So a lot of right brain kind of aspects, like even the muses. You could think of the nine muses, song and dance and celebration and all of that. It can get pretty detailed. There's actually a long list of what the Holy May or the powers of civilization are. And then she leaves, so this could be like moving into her solar plexus, right? Her identity of who she's about to become, going back to her city and creating a thriving, prosperous society. Then her father wakes up, and it basically says, like, from his drunken stupor, in a sense, the translation, and asks his servant, like, what happened to the powers of civilization? Well, Lord, you gave them to Inanna. Don't you remember? So he right away changes his mind. This becomes like the trickster aspect. They go running after her on her boat, the boat of heaven, and she has to go through 7 gates there. And then they kind of go after her at every gate, but she's got her holy servant there to protect and stand her ground. So I see that really like her solid in her knowingness of who she is. That's the solar plexus at a healthy perspective. And she says, no, sorry, I'm not letting you take it back, and moves forward. And then she arrives there in they call it the lapis lazuli bay, which is her color, the blue. She is then granted even more powers of civilization, and her father Enki, the god of wisdom, is there to congratulate. So she passes an initiatory rite. That's true too for us too. We have to think about, like, who am I in the solar plexus chakra, and if we're not sure there, then there's a little bit more work to do, right? A little more clearing. So then moving up into the heart chakra, this is when Inanna meets with her significant other, and they have this wonderful kind of interaction, like the little love story, or I think of it a lot of times as like springtime, and how you feel in springtime. You're just kind of in love with life because it all feels so good and fresh and new. She's then married, and they enact the sacred marriage ritual. So that's bringing together the other, right, into the heart space. Like I said, I'm cutting to the chase here. So here in the throat chakra, then is her journey to the underworld, which you're asking about, Raquel. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting what happens here because she's been married, say, we'll just say 5, 10 years or something, and things are getting a little, ho hum. And so,
As it does.
yeah. So she hears a call to go visit her sister, Arishka Gal, in the underworld. Arishka Gal is the queen of the underworld. She knows that like nobody returns from the underworld, but yet she's Inanna, right? So she is called, so she goes. Yet she asks her holy servant who helped her earlier to wait at the door, and in 3 days, if she doesn't return, to call for help. And then at that time, at the beginning, she has to go through 7 passageways. So 7 gates again, we see before she arrives to meet Erishkigal. And in that meantime, those 7 gates, she has to remove a part of her clothing or her talisman. It ends up being her staff, her breastplate. First, it's a beads. It's her breastplate, her crown, and then her staff and her robe. And then she's there at the very bottom. And I have in the book about how all those relate, like to the symbolically to us. And then she's met with Arishka Gal naked. So she's stripped of everything. And this could be when we just are at a point in our lives where like it's a dark night of the soul or something like that. Like I shared about having suicidal thoughts and that sort of thing get so dark, right? And Arishkiel fastens the eye of death on her. And so then she's hung on a peg, a wood peg is the translation. How does that sound familiar? Wood peg?
Kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wood, right? Then she is basically, that's it, annihilated until Ninshaber, then 3 days go by and asks for help. And then her father, the god of wisdom, again, who celebrated with her earlier and presented initiatory rites to her, came to her aid and brought the water of life and the food of life to come into the underworld. And at that point, they sort of mirrored Arishka Gal. There's a point where it's a pretty big part of the story. It goes on quite a long time where she's moaning and groaning like a woman about to give birth. And they sort of mirror, like empathize with her vocal sounds. So she says, well, what are you doing here? Why are you here to be compassionate and, empathize with me? And they're like, because we want that figure. So she says, okay, I'll grant you that. But she says, but Inanna, the only way she can return to the upper world and resume her reign and her throne is if she finds someone to replace her. So then there's this whole another part of the story where she finds.
This is my favorite part.
Yeah, right. I know it is a pretty funny part. She comes and everyone else is in their grieving clothes, right? They're like, oh my goodness, what happened? Inanna is no longer, right? Except for her husband, Dumuzi.
That bastard.
Exactly.
So I see him on his chase lounge with his maidens feeding grapes and feeding him, and he's in his royal garb. And she just walks up and she's like, you will go and
you're not in your morning clothes, you asshole. You're going. Sorry.
Yep.
It's my little editorializing there.
He runs off. Like, he's like, I'm out of here, right? And he tries to hide, and blah, 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 blah. Until then, he finally reconciles, like, okay, he replaces Inanna in the underworld, but only with the contention of his sister, Inanna, who is compassion, and she agrees to take his place for 6 months out of the year, and then he's there for 6 months. So every year when he returns, they have the sacred marriage ritual like celebration, which I see it as in springtime, and to me, I see that as the New Year celebration that we have.
Yeah.
They just change the dates, and just like other things that have been changed on us. That creates this winter summer solstice perspective that we have with nature. And then that ritual was performed every spring to bring like blessings to fertility.
So after having read your book, we realized that you were first introduced to Inanna during a holotropic breathwork session. And then you went on this journey of your own, these travels through holotropic breathwork, Kundalini yoga, delving into the chakras. What was that experience like for you?
Over, you mean like a decade or something?
Yeah. What did it mean to you to do this in-depth study of Inanna coming from this original introduction in holotropic breathwork?
Can I just add to that really quick?
Yeah.
So why Inanna and not another goddess? Why was Inanna so important?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when I had, it was about the third experience that I noticed her energy. I had already had two holotropic breathwork experiences where I sensed this feminine energy, but I didn't have any context at all. When the third one came around, and it was like I experienced her in the initial underground. It was dark, right? And there was like this box, and I'm in the holotropic breathwork state of mind, and I hear open the box, and I'm like, it's a little dark and scary down here. Like, I don't know. Like, literally, I was like, I don't know. And oh, come on, it's open, holotropic. You can just open your eyes, right? And then I went, okay, you know what? That's true. I'm just going to open the box. And this purple hue came out and just enveloped me like this cloud like energy. I felt lifted up and out of the darkness into the light. And I said, who are you? Like, what is this? Right. And I heard Inanna. We were just like free dancing. It was like the most wonderful feeling. But I wrote it on my mandala, drawing my mandala paper. We do a little art creative expression after. I spelled it Aynanya. That, and her name is actually Inanna. It was about a year later after it just stayed with me. I couldn't really lose the inquiry in my mind. Like I felt like I looked for all these things. I looked at different Buddhist deities, like the Buddha of light, or I was just trying to figure it out. And then a woman that does massage therapy kind of knew the goddesses, different goddess names, and I just happened to be talking to her about it, and she's like, I know who you're talking about. And then she gave me the right spelling. And then that just like poof opened everything up. And right away, I felt like I wanted to write a book about her. I've studied other goddesses in different cultures. In Egyptian, it could be Isis. In the Greek, could be Athena. But she's Venus, the star Venus. And so she's overlapping in a lot of other cultures, very, very much. I could go on and on and on. There's at least 12 other goddesses in different cultures that I've noticed is comparable to her.
I saw Isis in one of my holotropic breathwork sessions.
Cool.
I didn't have an experience like yours, but I saw Isis kind of with her arms outspread, sort of like behind everyone, sort of like in a way holding the whole earth or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't remember exactly, but
wings, yeah. Right?
Yeah, wings. Yeah.
Why was that meaningful because when I started reading the one book that I found about her, everything resonated with me. The symbolism resonated with me. That got me interested in Carl Jung's work even more, archetypes, symbolism, Joseph Campbell's
Mhm.
mythology. It just helps me shape my life more intentionally. Also, to clear away things that I didn't see, the shadow through the archetype. The chakras, just the energy aspect, there's so much there that I just literally feel like we are kind of like walking trees, right? We are rooted to earth. We are connected to the higher realms through the crown.
Sure. For people who don't really know what archetype means, how would you explain that?
Pretty simple, like seeing something that's an image or a symbol that is going to be a reflection for you to see something about yourself. It can really be that simple.
So if we had the archetype of, I don't know, like you said, the jokester before, or you said the trickster. If we had the archetype of the trickster and we were seeing that, how would that reflect ourselves?
Well, because sometimes we don't realize that's what's happening. I mean, I know people that can be very manipulative.
Ah, so it allows you to see where your own behavior might be manipulative, and it allows you to kind of analyze yourself a little bit.
Exactly.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, in the
Mhm.
book I talk about Enki, the god of wisdom, the trickster, kind of as like, oh, you gave it away, but then now you're taking it back. Wait, what a minute, what's that about? But then also the trickster could be where he guides her into that initiatory rite, and then that helps her blossom into the fullness of her solar plexus chakra.
Yeah. When you talk about the solar plexus chakra and her knowing herself, I often think that as modern day women, modern day goddesses in the United States, that chakra has to be damaged because or not damaged, maybe blocked for
Mhm.
most of
Mhm.
us because it's in
Or
this.
even hidden, I
Well,
think.
that's what I'm trying to say, because it's in this part of our body that we've tried to deny, we've tried to starve, we've tried to cover.
We've told this, evil
Yeah.
or dirty or yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or not to be seen.
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which I find very interesting because it's like our culture taught us to hide it or be ashamed. And yet that is the seed of our knowing of who we are.
And it's our power.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
So,
interesting.
I mean, yeah, and that's what's so great about the not just Inanna from the Sumerian culture as a deity, but also about the other top pantheon deities on the Sumerian culture, and that they really wanted us to be empowered. Except for one, of course, there's always got to be that one.
Yeah. But in our culture, they don't want us to be empowered.
Well, and that
Yeah.
one was what brought on the patriarchal era, which is
Ah,
Enlil and then Marduk. So a lot of
who
people
say who was it again?
Enlil,
Enlil?
Yeah, he's the I don't talk about him much in the book because they weren't really agreeable. Inanna and Enlil, they were disagreeable on what should take place with humanity, the human.
Ah, so that to me is fascinating.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the class that I'm teaching right now, the Return of the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So that's the whole thing is awareness. So
Mhm.
now if we're aware of that, we can create our own sovereignty. And
Yes.
that's with the solar plexus, no doubt, but clearing all the chakras, obviously, recognizing our own connection to the higher realms, to the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, whatever works for each person. Do we have that capacity? It's our birthright.
I have noticed in being the sitter in holotropic breathwork or being the floater in the room, I have noticed that a lot of people, especially women, seem to spend a lot of time in their session working on their chakras. Like I noticed they're either doing some energy work to their own, they just spend time on it. And I know that I have spent time on it, which is really interesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
can I ask a question about that? Because I haven't done holotropic breath work. So
Yet.
yeah. When you say that people are working on their chakras during the breath work, is that something that these particular people just know to do, so they're doing it? Or is that part of a holotropic breathwork session?
I have to correct myself.
Okay.
I don't actually know what other people are doing, right?
Okay, but it
I-
appears that they're
In my
working on
mind,
their
sometimes I think they're working on their chakras. They may or may not be. I don't
Okay.
actually know.
Okay.
But I do know, I have to correct myself. I do know for myself, when I have done holotropic breath work, I have worked on my chakras. I have
Okay.
spent time. And why? Because the direction has been to go with what presents itself. And so when I feel like an urge to like tap my third eye, that's what I
Mhm.
do. If I'm like thinking you should tap your third eye, that I'll start doing that.
Huh. So that just comes up.
Yeah. It's been part of the session for me. And
Okay.
I really,
Okay.
really do want to clarify, because it's really important in holotropic breathwork never to assume we know what's going on with someone else.
Okay.
And
That's fair.
I kind of
That's fair.
misspoke there. So I just want to clear that up.
Okay.
It might have
That's fair.
appeared that way to me, but I don't know what they're doing. They're doing
Yeah.
their own thing.
And you don't have to know anything about the chakras
Nope.
with breath work. But I will say that when Stan Groff did start to work with using the breath and this model through the music that is played, the music is kind of intended to move up the chakras. So Stan Groff and Christina Groff, his wife, put these elements together. And that's what's so beautiful and magical about it, is that a collaborated effort that is so powerful for people. But you don't have to know anything about the chakras, and then yet it's energy, right? So of course we're gonna notice how we feel if we feel blocks. It just makes sense that we are gonna, if somebody's kind of massaging in an area, they might not even know that that's energy that's blocked in their chakra space. And it may not even be that either, like Jennifer's saying, but
Right. They could be on a battlefield for all we know, or out in space. We don't know what they're doing.
Got it. Got it.
I
Okay.
did wanna talk about on page 115 in your book, you're talking about Carl Jung, and you've written in here, he says we must recognize that we are perhaps identical to our own worst enemy. Can you explain that?
yeah, is that what I say about the mote in one's eye?
I don't see that. It says, rather, our worst enemy is within ourselves. Each one of us can look in the mirror when we are projecting or blaming another for our pain.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it's so interesting. It has to do with the fact that if we aren't in touch with our unconscious, as Carl Jung, that's his main word, right? That we can easily then have this skewed perspective. And I say skewed because it's not necessarily healthy, that everyone else is to blame for our demise except for ourselves, and that we blame, project whatever onto other people. But when we go inward and we say, oh, you know what, as human beings, I and other people actually have the capacity to hurt people or even kill, right? It's not what we're really talking about here, but that's the capacity. We recognize our primal beingness, or even the fact that I think every single person has at some point had something that happened to them that was a trauma.
Sure.
And then that, how do you perceive that? Is it for, to feel victimized, right? Or can you actually grow and transform from that experience of trauma? That's probably one of the best things to do, is not to put blame or be defensive on others, but check in first on yourself and what's happening, why you're triggered, why you're charged, and all of those things.
Sure. I find with the trauma thing, like in dealing with my own traumas, that it was kind of a long process. And holotropic breathwork really did help with that. But in the beginning of the process, and I think this is because I'm a woman, but as a woman, I actually had to get to the point where I could blame the person first, because I wasn't even willing to be angry because I couldn't be in touch with my emotions. I wasn't allowed to be angry. So I had to get to blame first and then get to the spot where I sort of transcended that and got to maybe some more compassion, maybe some self-compassion, but also for the other. But I had to actually be a victim first because I spent so long not even being in touch with that. Like
Well,
really,
because you were so focused on the person who victimized you.
no, I think
No?
it's different. I think it's more like I put it in a box and put it
Ah,
in my subconscious
got it.
and
Open the box.
never thought about it, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
just it didn't exist.
Right.
But
That makes sense.
because it was tucked away, I was doing certain things in my life without realizing that this thing was motivating some of that behavior. But I didn't acknowledge that this thing even existed. So I had to like pull out the
Mhm.
box, open it up, get angry, blame them, and then move through a process, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense to me. And
Yeah.
of course, it's the awareness, right? So the awareness doesn't make it like all better.
Oh God, no.
You like be all the emotions that come out. But I know for myself, I don't want that stuck in me, right? I don't want that dark space like trapped in my body. I want to clear it out. And then, yeah, it's just the same, like you said, we're going to have all these emotions that come up. And
Yes.
full expression is
Yes.
what we should, in a healthy way. And that's what we do in holotropic breath work. It's full.
What a what a safe space to the first time I did holotropic breath work, I had like the anger of I feel like the world behind me.
Yeah.
What a safe space to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this keeps going through my head as we're talking about this and learning more about Inanna and her journey. I keep coming back to the seven portals. At each portal, she has to release something. And it's all of these things are material, right? Like she has to let go of her staff. She has to let go of her lapis necklace. She has to get rid of her armor. She has to get rid of her crown. She has to get rid of all of these things. Then she has to get rid of her robe. The thing that I keep coming back to is you're you're letting go of all these things that really aren't necessary, right? You don't need these things. You're releasing these things to get to the core of who you are,
Ooh,
right?
yeah.
So that you can experience whatever your underworld is, right? Whatever that thing is that you need to get to the bottom of. Whether you want to call it the underworld or the dark night of the soul or whatever you want to call it, but you need to get rid of those things to get to that core thing. And
Maybe almost your masks.
exactly, like they're crutches basically, right? It's all material. It's shit you don't really need. These things are keeping you from getting to the core of who you are. And I keep seeing this, And maybe I'm reaching, I don't know, but I keep seeing it in relation to the 7 chakras of as you're going through the chakras, you're clearing these things out. You're clearing these blockages. You're releasing all these things so that you can get to the essence of who you are and fully experience whatever it is that you need to experience.
Beautiful.
Right? So that's what keeps coming up for me with all of this. Am
Yeah.
am, am I like just like, reaching for shit, or does
No,
this make
no, no.
sense?
You're on the mark. And then what I want to add is that when we go through those experiences, and they could last differently for everybody, right? Like some people, it might be a month, some people, it might be 2 years that it
Mhm.
takes to go through that process. But it's a death and rebirth. If we are held and supported and we're able to grow, right? Like recognize this is not easy, but I'm staying with it.
Right.
Staying with it. And then we can think of, and I have to just do this with my camera for a second, the butterfly, right?
Right.
Caterpillar, the
Right.
caterpillar's going along, do, 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 do. And then, oh, okay. And then, wrap myself in this, um, you know,
In
uh,
the chrysalis.
yeah, the chrysalis, silk, and like it's annihilated. It
Mm,
totally transforms. There
Mhm.
is nothing left of that caterpillar by the time the butterfly emerges. So it's very similar, like that whole death rebirth concept, right? That metaphor that I feel like would be sometimes the best thing that ever happens to us in life.
right. But
Mhm.
difficult, maybe.
Well, we don't see it at the time. No.
We are out of time. So, what do you want to tell our audience that we didn't give you the chance to?
Oh, wow. I think that what has come to me with my connection to Inanna that came out of the holotropic breath work is that we're breathing in this new era.
Yay!
And I also have a different kind of breath work that I offer, like learning different breath work techniques, because I don't care what it is, just think about your conscious intentional breaths, right? I think that's so important. And that Ainana is here for us. She wants us to transform, to reach that state of balance, of feeling integrated within ourselves, wholeness. She wants us to experience that. And that means that our culture also needs to go through a death rebirth process. But I
Uh,
feel like we're in that. And we're
Yeah,
like,
we
the
are.
more we breathe, the more it's coming, you know? Yeah.
yep, yep. If people want to do holotropic breath work with you or your new class, or they want to sign up for one of your free workshops or other workshops, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, the email is great. My email is mari.breathwork9 at Gmail, and that's the word breathwork and the number 9 at Gmail. I have my website is breathwork9.com, which you can still tap into, but I am like right in the middle of, or I'm just about to relaunch, and it's going to be called thegoddessbreath.com.
Oh,
Is
nice.
my site.
Nice.
It's up. I just don't have everything like super linked right now. So yeah.
Awesome. And all of that for everybody listening is going to be in the show notes.
Well, thank you for being here today. And I have loved doing breath work with you. So I highly recommend a breath work experience with Mari,
Awesome.
wherever you can find a way to do that.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Talking up this awesome stuff that's for the collective, right? It's for all of
Yeah,
us.
Awesome.
totally.
Thank you so much, Mari.
Thank you both. All right. Blessings, everyone.
Do you want to recap?
Yes. Yes. I keep getting stuck on or stuck isn't really the right word. Maybe I'm focusing on the importance of the number 7, right? And the connection between the 7 portals, the 7 chakras, the 7 what's so important about the number 7.
Sounds like the road for you to follow.
Yeah, yeah, and, and it's funny, I mean, I just have this vague recollection, and I didn't really pay much attention to it, so this is going to be just kind of off the cuff. Like I heard somebody somewhere say that history goes in like 7-year cycles. So things change every 7 years. And then I think
Mm.
I've heard somewhere too that even our bodies change every 7 years, right?
My
So
marriage lasted 7 years.
there you go. There you go. And then, you hear people talk about like the 7-year itch in a marriage, right? Like there's something about, yeah, there's something about the number 7. And I don't know why I'm focusing on this, but I think there's something there that like you said, I probably need to
Sounds like the butterfly to
explore
me.
this. Yeah, maybe so. And maybe that's what's going on in our culture right now. Maybe that's what's going on with people. Maybe that's what's going on with me right now. But it just kind of brings up that if you start to pay attention, these symbols and these signs come up, and there's a reason that they're there. There's a reason these things are coming up. It's not this new thing, right? I mean, the myth of Inanna is thousands of years old, and the number 7 is there. There's this through line in society and in culture, and I think what's coming up for me is that it's it's the interconnectedness of all of this.
Yeah.
We're all connected, and what happens here affects what happens over here. I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head at this point, but I think we're starting to realize, at least in our current political climate, that what we do affects more than just us. It affects everybody. We are all interconnected. Maybe that's part of what happened for Mari with identifying with Inanna, that there was a connection there, and it helped her to see all of these connections outside of just herself and this goddess. So maybe, I mean, maybe that's something that needs to happen, and maybe that's what's going on in our culture. Maybe that's what's going on with me right now. Maybe that's why this is all just kind of like spilling out of, the top of my head right now.
I think it's fantastic. And I just cannot wait for you to do holotropic breath work now. I just cannot wait. I'm thinking
It'll happen.
I'm
It'll
thinking
happen.
January
Sure.
in St.
Sure.
Pete with Mari. I really
Yep.
think. And we'll bring
Yeah.
Tiffany too. All right.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so great. We'll get it on
Yeah,
the calendar, man.
we're gonna have a good time. And so all of our friends who want to be there, January in St. Pete with Mari.
Yup.
I want to read one more thing before we go. On
Yes, please.
page 159,
Mm-hmm.
she's talking about Carl Jung again. She says, Carl Jung has argued that it is only through the transformation of consciousness that we can change and grow. He tells us that all the greatest and most important problems of life are fundamentally insoluble. In other words, they can never be solved, only outgrown.
Mm.
This outgrowing requires a new level of consciousness and even some higher and wider interest appearing on the horizon. 1959. If
Mm.
we are willing to stay present to these levels, be honest with ourselves, and believe in the ability to overcome these traits while striving for a better character, we have a good chance of reaching what Abraham Maslow calls our highest potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I underlined part of that too. I only underlined like the first sentence, but yeah.
I think that's it. I think you nailed it. What's happening in our world consciousness
Mm-hmm.
is also the transformation that we are all having internally. As above, so below,
Right.
in the individual, in the collective.
Yeah.
Myth, story, dream, it's all a really great way to explain it or try to understand it or incorporate it or think about ourselves in the process.
Right. Right. It's another tool. It's another tool to get to our own truth, and to get to our own highest potential.
Yeah.
Wow. Great discussion. Thank you for reading that part, Jennifer. That was, yeah, this really makes me want to do some more delving in to all this and, like, peeling back the layers and finding all the connections and all this kind of stuff. So yeah.
It's fascinating. Once you start, it's just like more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My little nerd brain is just on fire right now. Like, oh my God, where's this gonna lead?
On fire. Bye.
This girl is on fire. Hey, I did some singing today. There we go.
Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend.
Or you could leave us a comment and a 5-star review, or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks, everybody.